Hey guys. I know I said that my next video would be about mental health and society, and it will. It's becoming a bit of a behemoth script that's requiring a lot of research, so that will be up as soon as I'm finished. In the meantime, I didn't want to lose this opportunity to discuss a hit piece from Right Wing Watch that was released a few days ago. I have talked a few times on my channel about how to deal with leftist attacks, and of course, you all know my story about my family being doxxed by the Riverfront Times, which is a St. Louis newspaper. I've told it so many times, but if you somehow haven't heard it, I've linked that video below. A bit of background about this current hit piece. Right Wing Watch enlisted this guy, Jared Holt, he's an employee there, to write an article called White Supremacy Figured Out How to Become YouTube Famous. I'll go over the details in a second, but it features me and I believe 8 or 9 other YouTubers ranging from Stefan Molyneux to Tara McCarthy, and much to my surprise includes Sargon, Roaming Millennial, and Styx Hexenhammer. Once I read the bio of the author, which I'll share with you in a moment, I felt like he was going to be a weak beta male that cannot stand by his statements, let alone by his principles. So I'm like, okay, this dude, I guarantee it, has a very fragile ego. I picked on him a little bit on Twitter, nothing too crazy. Then I DM'd him and told him to come on my channel or on my podcast and that I would also invite Roaming Millennial. He said that he is not allowed to schedule his own interviews without permission from Right Wing Watch and told me to contact them for scheduling. Of course, I knew I was getting the runaround, so I talked a little bit more shit to him and asked him why he would slander a bunch of independent folks that aren't beholden to any boss or company and can speak freely and without constraint. It doesn't really sound like a fair fight. Of course, I did not get any response from Right Wing Watch, who I've sent several emails to now, and because of my tweet flurry, Jared Holt blocked me on Twitter and protected his whole account. He also blocked everyone mentioned in his article that responded to him on Twitter, as far as I know. This is exactly what Daniel Hill of the Riverfront Times did after doxing us, although he eventually deleted his Twitter account. These feeble, weak, millennial liberal men will slander you, print outright, baseless lies, and clearly incite this backlash that they cannot weather because alternative media now has way bigger audiences. So then they claim that they're being harassed and retreat like wounded animals. He's actually claiming that my fans are issuing death threats to him now. Anyway, here's his bio. Research associate. Jared graduated from the University of Central Arkansas in 2015, where he studied print journalism and reported on local politics. He joined People for the American Way as a research associate after tracking and providing analysis on fringe media for Media Matters for America. Jared specializes in alt-right and so-called new right media in addition to his expertise surrounding the culture and influence of right-wing social media. He has provided commentary on numerous podcasts and has served as a source for reporters at publications such as the New York Times. He currently lives in Washington. First of all, why is some nothing research associate lending himself as a source to the New York Times? That tells you something about the source and the New York Times. Also, he studied print journalism as late as 2015, an all but antiquated field at this point. He only graduated 2 years ago. Only a complete dumbass would have thought that print journalism had a future at this point in time. Hold on while I get my typewriter. It's totally going to make a comeback, guys. So it ends up boxing him in, and all he can do is crap work reporting on small-town Arkansas politics as he watches his field, completely predictably, I might add, be phased out and replaced with competent citizen journalists, which was practically a complete process by the end of 2015. Then he sees an opportunity to finally employ his useless degree, but only through the exploitation of alternative media, which of course is the natural enemy of the print journalists and the mainstream media. His job now is to monitor people that he thinks, that his organization thinks, are threatening far-right sources of information. He literally listens for, monitors, and records wrongthink, then reports it to his employer like a fancy little narc. He has to sign his name to the article, yet by his own admission is not at liberty to even schedule his own interviews or choose which interviews he can do. He didn't even do a good job either. I know this guy is full of it and has not watched enough of our videos to form a coherent opinion because his list makes no sense. It is like he watched a few videos from each of us and grouped together completely dissimilar, independent people. As you know, everyone has done interviews with everyone else on YouTube. I've had people from the far left on my podcast, people from the far right, libertarians. Roaming Millennial has had everyone from leftist trannies to actual alt-right race realists. She will have a civilized discussion about the ideas with anyone. That's true of everyone on this list. He seems to claim that if we've associated with each other, we have absorbed the totality of one another's ideas. Someone doesn't infect you with ideas like the contraction of a disease. We have all spoken to a great number of people that we disagree with on fundamental issues, and none of us are under any obligation to explain ourselves or defend our positions for merely having a discussion with someone controversial. So let's go through some of this article, shall we? White supremacy figured out how to become YouTube famous. As a platform, YouTube has served as an alternative media ecosystem apart from the mainstream, where any person can contribute to national conversation and reach thousands of people overnight. But the right's overt domination of the platform, in addition to political forums on Reddit and 4chan, has created an environment where white nationalists and right-wing extremists can easily inject hateful rhetoric and conspiracy theories into national political discourse by positioning themselves alongside less overtly hateful, rising right-wing media personalities. These extremists roleplay as modern-day shock jock radio hosts as they insert their sexist, racist, bigoted rhetoric, which they excuse by saying they are trying to trigger liberals and fight for free speech, into the existing stream of right-wing commentary on YouTube. By successfully identifying how right-wing e-celebrities operate and collaborate in the YouTube ecosystem, white nationalists and white supremacists have cracked the code to achieving YouTube success and getting their ideas validated by more popular internet figures, and therefore have emboldened the political base they represent and recruited new audiences. The punditry faction of YouTube, much like cable news, thrives on collaboration and guest appearances on other pundits' channels. These right-wing YouTube commentators believe that by bolstering one another, they can break through fake news, mainstream media narratives, and spread their own flavor of political analysis. The most extreme of these commentators will identify YouTube pundits slightly closer to center-right than them and appear on their programs to share their viewpoints. They then use this access to a larger platform to recruit more people to their own pages where they espouse extremist views with even less restraint. This trickle-down effect is not limited to Cernovich. Many other prominent right-wing social media personalities have appeared on programs like Virtue of the West. For example, video blogger Tarl Warwick, who was heralded on 4chan and promoted by major video bloggers like Paul Joseph Watson, has guided his audience to openly alt-right media platforms such as Red Ice. Digital pundit Carl Benjamin, known best as Sargon of Akkad, has exposed his regular audience of hundreds of thousands of viewers to white nationalists and their hateful ideologies. This is a ridiculous claim, trickle-down effect. This is why he has his own category for enablers. This is the infection of ideas that I was discussing earlier. Jared does not want us to share ideas, and he does not want to share ideas with us, which is why he's cowering in fear right now. Saying that Sargon exposed his audience to white nationalism completely strips his audience of any agency. Like if they hear the ideas, they will not be able to resist them because they're such stupid sheep. Cernovich's appearance on Virtue of the West is not an isolated incident. Every day, all across YouTube, popular pundits with large audiences and connections to those in power are engaging with, promoting, and validating extremist YouTube personalities who seek to radicalize their audiences and promote extreme right-wing politics. In this next segment, he talks about how the right on YouTube is disgruntled because our videos are being flagged, and then he says this. If white supremacist alt-right YouTubers are able to claim that their demonetization was censorship and successfully motivate their audiences to pick up alternative platforms like BitChute and Gab, they will be able to espouse their extremist views in even more isolated echo chambers and increase the risk for radicalization among viewers. What is the implication of this sentence? It is that we should not be allowed to organize on any platform because we're so dangerous. Can you even imagine the regulations and the backlash that this would require and result in? Is Jared just naive, or does he realize the kind of radical censorship for which he's advocating? Okay, the extremists using YouTube to get famous. Below is an introduction to a few of the most prominent examples of right-wing extremists who have used YouTube to build large online followings, some with the help of better-known right-wing social media personalities. Black Pigeon Speaks, and by the way, look at how this retard spelled pigeon twice in the original article, is an anonymous YouTube vlogger based in Japan with hundreds of thousands of followers. Shorenstein Center on Media fellow Zach Alexi noted that BPS's worldview overlaps with older ideas from many diverse movements and ideologies such as white nationalism, neo-Nazism, anti-Semitism, conservatism, classical liberalism, libertarianism, and Christian conservatism. BPS does not outwardly identify with any particular political ideology, but frequently reiterates talking points popular among alt-right circles, such as his belief that empowered women destroy civilizations, transgender people are mentally ill, and efforts for diversity erase Western cultures. I had a really big problem with how Holt characterized Black Pigeon Speaks, particularly saying that his worldview overlaps with ideas from other, more unsavory groups and movements. That can be said of almost anyone. I advocate for a patriarchal society, so do many Muslim countries. Does that mean that I have a wholly shared ideology with Muslims? Of course not. Truly, this can be said about virtually any two ideologies. They're bound to overlap somewhere. But what he said after that is basically true. Blind in the belly of the beast. Rebecca, who does not share her last name, is a YouTuber based in Seattle who has said the idea that all cultures are equal is garbage. On her Patreon fundraising page, Rebecca states that she has become increasingly hostile this last decade as I realized that feminism, Islam, cultural Marxism, and unrestricted tolerance have incrementally eroded our once great society into something unrecognizable. On YouTube, she shares views about white identity, tells young women to abandon feminism, and makes bigoted arguments against migration in Europe. Rebecca has more than 70,000 subscribers to her channel and has been hosted by far-right superstar Stefan Molyneux, alt-right extremist Tara McCarthy, and alt-right media network Red Ice TV. She has also been promoted numerous times on white nationalist Richard Spencer's site, altright.com. Most of that is true. I wouldn't call my arguments bigoted, and I have no control over what Richard Spencer puts on altright.com, so I reject that characterization. But otherwise, this was pretty factual. The idea that all cultures are equal is garbage, and tolerance has eroded our once great society. I rarely talk about white identity, but I did in the video that they linked. Otherwise, mine was probably the most correct of all of the bios. The remainder of this category, the extremists using YouTube to get famous, most of the things said are true. Of course, he editorializes it. He calls Ramsey Paul the smiling Nazi. There's some real gems in there. But he basically lambasts us for going on each other's shows and providing platforms for one another. I wasn't truly furious about any of this until I got to the next section, which is people who enable the hate. Below is an introduction to some of the most prominent right-wing social media personalities who have used the popularity of their own platforms to host people with even more extreme views, or who have appeared on platforms hosted by extremists. These figures do not regularly use their platforms to personally express particularly racist or extremist ideologies, but frequently host guests or appear on platforms that do with minimal criticism. Carl Benjamin, best known as Sargon of Akkad, is a YouTube personality who rose to fame during the Gamergate controversy, which ended in death threats being sent to a female video game developer. Ugh. Benjamin has hundreds of thousands of followers with whom he shares anti-SJW rhetoric, criticizing liberals who express outrage at offensive content. Benjamin considers himself a classical liberal, but has expressed his fascination with the racist alt-right and has shared his platform with blatantly alt-right figures. Never mind his complete mischaracterization of Gamergate. What is this guy's obsession with sharing our platforms? Jared comes back to this repeatedly. Who's hosted who? Who let who share their sacred online space? I wonder if his mom's basement looks like this. Stefan Molyneux is an author and vlogger with a large following on YouTube. He is a popular figure among red-pilled men's rights advocates. Red pill is a term from the sci-fi movie The Matrix that refers to recognizing the brutal realities of the world rather than living in blissful ignorance, and identifies himself as a race realist, a common euphemism amongst white supremacists. Although Molyneux's political views are bent toward the unforgiving right, his primary involvement in the spread of extremism is his willingness to host openly alt-right extremists, providing these figures a big step toward online relevancy. It's the same with Molyneux. Holt really doesn't say anything about Molyneux's belief system. He just repeats what he calls himself. He makes the claim that the shared euphemism of race realist is enough to classify Molyneux as a white supremacist. I've watched thousands of hours of Molyneux and I have never heard him say anything of the like, and the author doesn't have any damning support to put forth. He just links a video of Stefan and Jared Taylor, and once again is just creepily fixated on our associations. Roaming Millennial is an anonymous Canadian video blogger who uses her incredibly popular YouTube channel to convey far-right talking points that straddle the line of extremism. Roaming Millennial's videos have been dedicated to botched debunks of racial oppression and gender inequality, labeling social justice cancer, and decrying non-traditional gender identity. Although Roaming Millennial does not identify as alt-right, she has welcomed right-wing extremists like Tara McCarthy to appear on her channel, which was for a debate, by the way. This is the one that pissed me off most of all. Everyone loves Roaming Millennial. I've done several streams with her. She's been a guest on my show multiple times. She does tons of interviews with a huge variety of people, and she's always sweet and professional, and she keeps her channel really clean. As someone without a filter, I admire how polished and thoughtful she is. Listen to the language he used. She uses her channel to convey far-right points that straddle the line of extremism. He can't even call her an extremist because he knows damn well that that is not true. Everything else he says about her is untrue, except for the fact that she's hosted far-right personalities. But she's hosted far-left personalities too, and people all over the spectrum. Also, she's half Chinese and has debated people from the alt-right on racial issues. She simply cannot be classified as a white supremacist or an enabler of white supremacy, which is just a chicken shit way to accuse her of something indirectly. And last but not least, Tarl Warwick, or Styx, was an early arrival to YouTube in 2007 and now posts daily political commentary videos in which he espouses nationalistic views to his audience of more than 170,000 subscribers. Warwick is often heralded in the racist cesspool of 4chan, no editorializing there, and 8chan's politically incorrect forum boards, where he says he sources his news to break the stranglehold of the mainstream media. Warwick has appeared on blatantly alt-right YouTube channels with Red Ice host and Tara McCarthy. He does not denounce ethno-nationalists, but does not claim to personally believe in a white ethno-state. Recently, Warwick has been seen boosting his profile on InfoWars and Stefan Molyneux's channel. Of all the people on this list to be hurling ethno-state accusations at, it is truly baffling to me that the one Jared Holt chooses is Styx Hexenhammer. Everyone that watches him knows that he's a libertarian on most things and is even center-left on some things. I would never categorize him as a right-winger, let alone accuse him of desiring an ethno-state because he hasn't denounced it fervently enough. This is a complete witch hunt, and it seems that the only research that's been done is to see who has appeared on whose show. That's it. I have to say that most of the stuff that he says about me is true, but I have never and would never call myself a white supremacist. I have spoken plenty about Western superiority, and I stand by everything that I've said on this front. Show me a culture that has done more good in the world. I will not apologize for defending and trying to save the greatest civilization that the world has ever known. And I will not be drawn into a defensive position about this either. I've defended myself against accusations of racism so many times, and ultimately I realized that no matter what we say, no matter if we're sweet and our content is clean like Roaming Millennial, or if we're truly alt-right like Richard Spencer, the left doesn't care. So I'm more candid than most, and I cannot be the only person that feels like this. We should just say whatever we want. Why bother trying to appease them? I've already read a bunch of articles like this about myself. I've been lied about, called every name in the book. I'm sure every person on this list has. This isn't our first rodeo, and we aren't going to be deterred by hit pieces of this nature. If anything, it just incentivizes us to be more candid and publicizes our channels to others. This article actually gave me a pretty good subscription boost. I think this is a perfect example of what the left tries to do. How little research they're actually engaging in, and how this, paired with their absence of qualms about telling blatant lies, makes for quite the bullshit explosion. More humiliating than this is that he has branded himself an expert on right-wing e-celebrities, so I dare say that he will not be able to claim that the falsehoods that he's printed are the result of ignorance. Normally, I wouldn't really care about something like this. I cared about the Riverfront Times because it actually affected my life and the lives of my family, but the reason that I'm making a stink about this, even though I have had basically no backlash, is that this isn't CNN coming at us. This is a rinky-dink group with a small following and, according to their website, just a few employees. Apparently, they used to be some sort of actual watchdog organization that did good work, but they have clearly descended into witch hunting. Any information on who funds them would be really, really helpful. I had never even heard of them before this, which, by the way, happened in tandem with my first community guidelines strike. I think when Jared Holt was doing research for this article, he was also flagging my videos, but of course I can't substantiate this. But when we are slandered by these smaller organizations with incompetent, stupid journalists, then they show signs of fear by ignoring our interview requests and blocking us on Twitter. We have a real chance to show leftists and the media that they cannot just invent narratives indiscriminately and without conscience to support their existing warped worldview. I've gotten a few messages from attorneys that want to help out and give advice, but feel free to take a look at the article and provide suggestions for recourse. We have a few ideas in mind, but I would love some feedback, especially from attorneys, about alternative avenues that we can take to respond to this. Also, there will be a Monday evening hangout with most of the people that are mentioned in the article. I think I'm going to try to join them. At this point in time, it's going to be hosted on James Alsup's channel. Thanks, folks, and I'll see you soon. Bye.